Everyone, please take your seats. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Dharika Suresh.
I'm Dr. Suraj Shenvi. We are honored and privileged to welcome you all for the Yuva Samvada, a conversation with first-time voters with Dr. S. Jaishankar, organized by Shri Tejasvi Surya, a member of Parliament, Bengaluru South, in association with Bharatiya Janata Yuva Morcha. Now, it's time to invoke the blessings of Lord Ganesha and seek guidance through the invocation song rendered by Dr. Srinidhi.
Amba tanaya, Amba tanaya, Amba tanaya he Rambha Puran Karuna Bodhe Tava Charna Bodhe Kera Guve Amba tanaya Dashana Modaka Pashankusha Pani Dashana Modaka Pashankusha Pani Asama Sahas Charudeshna Vandipe Amba Tanaya Amba Tanaya He Rambha Puran Karuna Bodhe Tava Charana Bodhe Kera Guve Amba Tanaya Yuddha Pavadana Pratyota Sanniva Yuddha Pavadana Pratyota Sanniva Jagannatha Vithala Sampriti Vijaya Jaya Amba Tanaya Amba Tanaya He Rambha Purana Karuna Bodhe Tava Charana Bodhe Kera Gove Amba Tana Amba Tana Amba Tanaya. Thank you.
Thank you for the melodious rendition, Dr. Srinidhi. Deepam Jyoti Parabrahma, Deepam Jyoti Janardana, Deepam Papam Harate, Deepom Namostute. With that said, let us now light the lamp to mark the beginning of this auspicious occasion.
I request the dignitaries to come forward and proceed for the lighting of lamp. I also request Captain Britesh Chota, Shri Puneet Reddy, Shri Sandeep Ravi, Shri Deepak Mayasandra and Srimati Smriti Harits to join them.
Thank you, sir. It is my pleasure to stand here and invite Mr. Dishan Rajshekhar to welcome our guest of honor for today, Dr. S. Jaishankar sir.
India is changing. India's stance on the global stage has been rejuvenated with a new energy fueled by Jan Shakti. This quote by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji perhaps has been a quote that speaks volumes about the immense progress that India has made in the last few years and significantly impacted the spheres of foreign policy and geopolitics. On that very note, I, Dishan Rajshekhar, wish everyone present here a very, very warm afternoon. Today, the world faces immense challenges that surpass boundaries and is in a constant flux. And one of the most critical aspects that any country in the world focuses on is the way it shapes the rest of the world and influences its position on global issues. In the dynamic world of today, India is witnessing a pragmatic shift in her interests, fueled by able leaders who are paving the way forward with impeccable diplomacy and international presence. And here to guide us through this very convoluted world of international relations, foreign policy, and geopolitics, I consider it my absolute honor to introduce our speaker for today, the Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. Dr. Jaishankar's immense experience comprises of being an exceptional diplomat, for 38 years serving as High Commissioner to Singapore, Ambassador to the People's Republic of China, and the United States. Sir also served as the Foreign Secretary until 2019, when he was chosen to lead the Ministry of External Affairs. His book, The India Way, Strategies for an Uncertain World, serves as an important primary document through which to understand the thinking of an influential architect of a the world's largest democracy's foreign policy. His valuable insights, vast experience, and pragmatic approach have helped India navigate complex geopolitical challenges and forge strong partnerships with nations across the globe. On behalf of everyone present here today, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. S. Jaishankar and thank him for taking the time to share his valuable insights.
We request MP Shyam, Honorary President of the Rashtriya Shikshana Samiti Trust, Dr. AVS Murthy, Honorary Secretary of the Rashtriya Shikshana Samiti Trust, Chancellor of the RV University, Shri D.P. Nagaraj, Joint Secretary of the Rashtriya Shikshana Samiti Trust and Chancellor of RV University, to hand over the token of appreciation. Thank you, sir. We request you to extend our token of appreciation to Shri Tejasvi Surya, a Honorable Member of Parliament.
Thank you, sirs. I consider it my absolute pleasure to welcome the Member of Parliament for Bengaluru South and BJYM National President, Shri Tejasvi Surya, to this August event. I would also like to welcome Captain Brijesh Chota, a retired Army officer, present co-convener for State Yuva Samvad, BJYM, and Srimati Smriti ji, co-convener for State Yuva Samvad, BJYM, and Shri Deepak Maya Sandraji, District General Secretary, BJP. I would also like to extend my warm welcome to Shri Puneet Reddy ji, District President, BJP Yuva Morsha, Bangalore South. And Shri Sandeep Raviji, District Vice President and Convener, Yuva Samvada, BJYM. I also warmly welcome Dr. MP Surya, President, Rashtriya Shikshana Samiti Trust, Dr. AVS Murthy, Honorable Secretary, Chancellor RV University, and Dr. Shri DP Nagraj, Joint Secretary and Pro Vice Chancellor RV University. Lastly, I welcome the ecstatic audience to this event today. I hope that this discussion today will help everyone look here beyond the horizons and get an in-depth experience of the world of geopolitics, diplomacy, and foreign policy. Thank you. Hope you have an enriching day today.
Thank you, Mr. Dishan Rajshekhar. We are honored to have with us a distinguished guest and rising star in Indian politics, Shri Tejasvi Surya sir, Honorable Member of Parliament, Bengaluru South, National President, Bharatiya Janata Yuva Morcha. We request you to take over and brief us about the event, sir.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನಾನು ಜೈಶಂಕರ್ ಸರು ಉಡುಪಿ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಭವನಲ್ಲಿ ಊಟ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇವಾಗ ನಮಗೇನೋ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಣ್ಣೆಳೀತಾ ಇತ್ತು, ಆದರೆ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಇಳಿದು ಬಂದು ಮೇಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜೋಶಲ್ಲಿ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ರೆಡಿ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ತಯಾರಿದ್ದೀರಾ? ರೆಡಿ? ಆಗಲೇ ಎಸ್ ಅಂತ ನನಗಿಂತ ನಿದ್ದೆ ಬರೋರ ಥರ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ. ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನಮ್ಗಿರೋ ನಿದ್ದೆನೂ ಹೊಡೆದಾಕೋ ರೀತಿ. ಆರ್ ಯು ಆಲ್ ರೆಡಿ? Awesome. So, very good afternoon to everybody. Sir, it's such an honor, such a privilege to all of us that you consented to spend this afternoon speaking to young citizens of Bengaluru, first-time voters of Bengaluru, who have before them, in maybe the next 50-60 days, a very onerous task of choosing the government of Karnataka for the next 5 years. The object behind having this conversation today is to keep ourselves better informed of what the country's leadership is doing, how India is achieving its objectives and goals at the global level, how India today is seen as a rising geopolitical force around the world, and how as young people, especially us as citizens of India's fastest growing city, Bengaluru, what is the role we have? What are the opportunities we have? And what are the kind of challenges all of us are facing? Who better to educate us, guide us, than the man who is leading India's efforts at the global stage himself, India's most loved, most respected, most articulate, and dare I say, the first foreign minister who has a rock star following all across the country, Mr. Jaishankar himself. Sir, Bengaluru truly loves you. The young of Bengaluru love you more. And the reason I say this is because just 2 days ago, when we got your consent for organizing this program, I put out a tweet asking people to register for today's conversation. Let me remind you, sir, today is a Friday, and it's a Friday afternoon. And trust me when I say this, it's very difficult to get young people out on a Friday evening in Bengaluru to listen to a lecture. But in less than 3 hours' time, we had more than 1,200 registrations by the best of Bengaluru's college students who had signed up on the form to come here from different parts of the city only to listen to you. That's the kind of love and respect Bengaluru has for you, sir, for the work that you're doing for us. Thank you so much once again for coming here. ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ, ನಾವು ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ನಲ್ಲಿ, ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಜೈಶಂಕರ್ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಎಷ್ಟೋ ರೀಲ್ಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಲೈಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ, ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ವಾಟ್ಸಾಪ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಗಳಿಗೆ ಮಾಸ್ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಹಾಕಿ ಸ್ಪ್ಯಾಮ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅವರು ವಿದೇಶದ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ, ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಇಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಫೋರಮ್ನಂಥ ಸಮಿಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿ, ಡಾವೋಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅಮೆರಿಕಾದಲ್ಲಿ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಲಾಂಛನವನ್ನು, ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಬಾವುಟವನ್ನು, ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಅಸ್ಮಿತೆಯನ್ನು ಬಾನೆತ್ತರಕ್ಕೆ ಏರಿಸಿದಾಗ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ಭಾರತೀಯನಿಗೂ ರೋಮಾಂಚನ ಉಂಟಾಗಿದೆ. ಒಂದು ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇರುವಂಥ, ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದ ಗೌರವವನ್ನು ಸೆಳೀತಾ ಇರುವಂಥ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರದ ಯುವ ಪ್ರಜೆಗಳು ನಾವು ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ತುಂಬ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಹೆಮ್ಮೆ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯ ಅವರನ್ನು ಲೈವ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೇಳುವಂಥ ಅವಕಾಶ ನಮಗಿಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. ಅದು ನಮ್ಮದೇ ಊರಿನಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದು ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಸೌತಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದು ಜಯನಗರದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಇಷ್ಟು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದು ಯಶಸ್ವಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಿ. ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಅವರನ್ನ ಕೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೋತ್ತರಗಳನ್ನು ಕೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ಎರಡೇ 2 ನಿಮಿಷಗಳ ಕಾಲ ಕಾಂಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಇವತ್ತು ಯಾವ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಸೇರಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಎದುರುಗಡೆ ಹೇಳುವಂಥ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತೇನೆ. All of us are here in Bengaluru, in this auditorium, having this open, free discussion with the External Affairs Minister of the country. We are deliberating on how Karnataka is doing, what Bangalore is doing, what is the future of the country for the next 20 years, 25 years, what is our role in Amrit Kal. Just imagine if we weren't here, but if we were, say, 1,000 kilometers to the south of where we are sitting, say in Sri Lanka. ಇಲ್ಲಿಲ್ದಲೆ ನಾವಿವತ್ತು ಶ್ರೀಲಂಕಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ರೆ 136% ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ. ಊಟ ತಿಂಡಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂಥ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿನ ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ದೇಶದ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರಪತಿ ಜನ ಎದ್ದೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ಊರೇ ಬಿಟ್ಟು, ದೇಶನೇ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಓಡೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಜಸ್ಟ್ 1,000 kilometers to the south of where we are sitting. ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿಲ್ದಲೆ 1,200 kilometers to the northwest ನಾವು ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ. ನಾವು ಪಾಕಿಸ್ತಾನದಲ್ಲೋ ಅಫ್ಘಾನಿಸ್ತಾನದಲ್ಲೋ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದರೆ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಕಾನ್ವರ್ಸೇಷನು, ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನು, ಡೆಲಿಬ್ರೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂತಿರೋ ಜಾಗದಿಂದ 1,200 kilometers ನಾವು ಈಸ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಿದ್ರೆ, ಚೈನಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದರೆ, ಈ ಥರ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ವೋಟರ್ಸ್ನ ಸೇರಿಸಿ ದೇಶದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ ಅಫೇರ್ಸ್ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ನ ಕರೆಸಿ ಅವ್ರ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕಾರ್ಡನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಎದುರುಗಡೆ ಕೊಡುವಂಥ ಅಕೌಂಟಬಿಲಿಟಿಯ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮು ಚೈನಾ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳಕ್ಕಾಗ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ತಾನೆ? ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ನಾವು 1,200 kilometers, 1,400 kilometers ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್ ಟು ದ ನಾರ್ತ್ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ರೆ, ಯುಕ್ರೇನಲ್ಲೋ ರಷ್ಯಾದಲ್ಲೋ ನಮ್ಮದೇ ವಯಸ್ಸಿನ ಯುವಕರು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಫೇಸಿಂಗ್ ಕಂಪಲ್ಸರಿ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್. ನಾವಿವತ್ತು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಯೂನಿಕಾರ್ನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾ, ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ಅಪ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾ, ಹೊಸ ಐಡಿಯಾಸ್ ಏನೋ, ದಿಸ್ ದ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ವೊಕ್ಯಾಬುಲರಿ ಆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಸ್ ಆರ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್. Just goes to show how privileged we are, how fortunate we are to be here in India, to be here in Karnataka and Bengaluru at this point in time. And this is greatly due to the fantastic leadership that the country today has, thanks to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We are the world's fastest growing large economy. ನೀವು ಅಗ್ರಿಕಲ್ಚರ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಸೆರಿಕಲ್ಚರ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಪ್ಸ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಕೋರ್ ಮ್ಯಾನುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರಿಂಗ್ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಎಜುಕೇಷನ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಡಿಫೆನ್ಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾನುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರಿಂಗ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರು ಕೂಡ ಭಾರತ ಇವತ್ತು ಹೊಸ ಮೈಲಿಗಳನ್ನು ಮುಟ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ವಿ ಆರ್ ಟಚಿಂಗ್ ನ್ಯೂ ಮೈಲ್ ಸ್ಟೋನ್ಸ್. ದೇಶದ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಹೀಗಾಯಿತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಇಸ್ ಲೀಡಿಂಗ್ ದಿಸ್ ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ. ಇವತ್ತು ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಯಾರ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮೆನ್ಸ್ ನ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಆರ್ ರೈಟ್ ಎಟ್ ದ ಟಾಪ್. ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ 4 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ the state that has attracted the highest foreign direct investment consecutively in the last 4 years is Namma Karnataka. the state that houses the world's fastest growing city, projected to grow as the fastest growing city for the next 15 years, Namma Bengaluru is also in Namma Karnataka. The state which has repeatedly ranked at the very top on the National Innovation Index, Tirga Namma Karnataka. 500 ಫಾರ್ಚೂನ್ 500 ಕಂಪನಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ 400 ಫಾರ್ಚೂನ್ 500 ಕಂಪನಿಗಳು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತದ್ದು ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ. 65% ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾಸ್ ಏರೋಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಡಿಫೆನ್ಸ್ ಎಬಿಲಿಟೀಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾನ್ಯುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರ್ ಆಗೋದು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನ ಸುತ್ತಮುತ್ತ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಪ್ರದೇಶ. ಇಡೀ ದೇಶದ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಸಸ್ಟೈನಬಲ್ ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಏರ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಟರ್ಮಿನಲ್ ಇರೋದು ಯಾವುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ. ಲಾರ್ಜೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮೆಟ್ರೋ ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇರುವಂತ ದಕ್ಷಿಣ ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲೇ ಅತಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ದೊಡ್ಡ ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಮೆಟ್ರೋ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇರುವಂತ ನಗರ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು. ಇಡೀ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಅತಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಪರ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಾ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಇರುವಂತ ಇರುವಂತ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಮತ್ತು ಅತಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಪರ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಾ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಇರುವಂತ ನಗರ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು. ದೇಶದ ಯೂನಿಕಾರ್ನ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ 50% ಯೂನಿಕಾರ್ನ್ಸ್ ಹುಟ್ಟಿಸಿರೋದು ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನಲ್ಲಿ, ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ. This is the kind of fast-paced growth track on which Karnataka and Bengaluru today is on. It is in this context that political stability, choosing the right kind of leadership, making informed political choices become all the more important. I only want to say this. Today we have a fantastic opportunity to interact with one of the finest thinkers, scholars, and administrators the country is seeing. I hope that we will make use of this opportunity to ask him pertinent questions which will help us make the right choices in the very near future when we are faced with a very important responsibility of choosing the right leadership for the state. I keep saying this often whenever I meet young people in colleges. When they ask me, why should we be invested in politics? Why should we be invested in what's happening in the political and global spheres around the world? What do we have in it? We may have the choice to not indulge or interfere or involve in politics. We may have the choice to not involve in politics, but we do not have the choice to not be affected by the outcome of politics. This is a reality. ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲ್ಗೆ ಹಾಕಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ 1 ಲೀಟರ್ ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಹಾಕಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕೆ ಹೋದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಆ ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲ್ ರೇಟು ಎಷ್ಟಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದೆ ಏನು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಯುಕ್ರೇನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ರಷ್ಯಾ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಆಗುವಂತ ವಾರನ್ನ ಜೈಶಂಕರ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು, ನೀವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಪೆಟ್ರೋಲಿಗೆ 100 ರೂಪಾಯಿಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಲೀಟರ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲಿರುತ್ತೆ. ನೀವು ಓದ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ನ ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬುಕ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಅಪ್ ಟು ಡೇಟ್ ಸಿಲೆಬಸ್ ಸಿಗಲ್ವಾ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೂಡ ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಕ್ರಾಫ್ಟ್ ಆಗೋದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ನೀವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಫೋನ್ ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕ್ 4G ಇರೋದಲ್ಲಿರತ್ತಾ ಅಥವಾ 5Gಗೂ ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್ ಆಗತ್ತಾ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೂ ಕೂಡ ದೇಶದ ಟೆಲಿಕಾಂ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಡಿಟರ್ಮೈನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರತಿ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅವರ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಇಸ್ ಗವರ್ನ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೀಡರ್ಶಿಪ್ ಚಾಯ್ಸಸ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಮೇಕ್. In that context, this is a very important conversation. Starting today, ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಬೇರೆ ಮೂಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ಕಾಲೇಜಸ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಂದ್ರದ ಭಾರತೀಯ ಜನತಾ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ನರೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋದಿ ಅವರ ಕ್ಯಾಬಿನೆಟ್ ಇರುವಂತಹ ನಾಯಕರುಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಮುಖವಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ನಾಯಕರುಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ, ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಕ್ಯಾಂಪಸ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಸಂವಾದ ಮಾಡಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ನಾವು ಹೊಸ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕವನ್ನ ಹೊಸ ಭಾರತಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಸಂಕಲ್ಪದ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ಒಂದು ಕೆಲಸಗಳು ನಡೀತಾ ಇದ್ದಾವೆ. ಆ ದಿಕ್ಕಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಮೊದಲ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಜೈಶಂಕರ್ ಅವರಿಂದ ನಾವು ಇವತ್ತು ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀರಿ. ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ ಮಾಡಿ. ಐ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಜೈಶಂಕರ್ ಸರ್ ಫಾರ್ ಟೇಕಿಂಗ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಔಟ್ ಟು ಇಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ವಿತ್ ಅ ಬ್ರೈಟ್, ಯಂಗ್, ವೆರಿ ಆರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲೇಟ್ and very capable young people of Bengaluru, sir. Thank you so much. Eldrigu kuda namaskara, ಧನ್ಯವಾದ.
ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ಜಯನಗರ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಶ್ರೀ ತೇಜಸ್ವಿ ಸೂರ್ಯ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the moment we all have been looking forward to. It is my great honor and privilege to introduce one of the most distinguished, finest diplomat and statesman of our time, Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar sir. Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Government of India. I request all of you to join me in giving a round of applause and standing ovation to Dr. S. Jaishankar sir.
My parliamentary colleague, Shri Tejasvi Surya ji, dear friends, let me begin by saying that I never pass up an opportunity to come to Bengaluru. And that's a very good reason. I spent a lot of my younger years in this city. I even did a little bit of my schooling here. I have very fond memories which I troubled him with today. Definitely many things have changed in Bengaluru, but I saw, okay, the Lal Bagh entrance is still the same. For me, this is a city which recalls really my period of growing up. And you know, as you get older, that looks nicer and nicer. So when he suggested I come here for the program today, I think I gave him a yes straight away. But there was also something more than a personal reason to come back. Because as someone who goes around the world representing India, marketing it in many ways, branding it, gauging what the world is thinking about India, a lot of the images and impressions and understanding that the world has about India is actually about Bengaluru and Karnataka. So I fully echo a lot of what Tejasvi said about the leadership role that this state and this city has played in the national development of our country. The reputation it has today for modernity, for its embrace of technology, for the quality of its human resources, I think these are really very big national assets. So in many ways, I'm also here to say thank you to all of you. Now, as someone who deals so much with the world, I want you all to understand today how the world is thinking about us. And I want to share with you 10 reasons why today the world is looking at India with a different sense of respect, with a greater sense of partnership, and with a desire for closer engagement. These 10 experiences which I share with you are in many ways I can say are first-hand impressions. And so let me start with what I believe certainly in the last 2 or 3 years has made a really big difference. And that is actually our handling of the COVID. Very, very early on, when COVID first came, there was a genuine worry in the world. How countries which did not have a strong public health system, a very robust infrastructure, no social safety net, how will such societies cope with the COVID? And actually, in many of the high-level conversations, even at a G20 level, often India would be mentioned as a source of worry for the world. 3 years later, when we look who fared in what manner, yes, everybody, the entire world took a hit on COVID. I mean, I think there would not be a single person in this room, or probably in this city, maybe even in this country, who has either not had it themselves, not lost someone near and dear. I mean, no question it has been a traumatic experience. But when we see who came through it and in what manner, I think the world sat up and really took notice of India. Many of you would have heard me on YouTube speaking about some experiences. I want to tell you most of those stories are actually true. There is that story of taking my son out in New York, where he took out a kind of folded slip from his wallet as his certificate, and I showed my phone. That actually happened. When I went around telling people what our vaccination rates were and how well it was organized, I would actually, this itself would be a subject of discussion and fascination. But in all of this, I think people saw two very big differences in the India of the last few years and the India of the previous image. One was the fact that we produced vaccines on a scale and with an efficiency and with a timeliness that the rest of the world really came to admire. And the second, that we, a nation which was always last in the queue waiting for other people to do their stuff and then eventually it would come to us, we actually had not just made in India vaccines, we actually had invented in India vaccines. Now, it's a different matter that some people ran it down. But trust me, I took the Covaxin and I at least went through more than 2 years of visiting hospitals, of going to places where COVID was very much rife. It took about 2 years for the vaccine to catch up, for the virus to catch up with me. The second reason was actually our economic recovery. Now, when economies start to contract as the COVID, many places shut down, we also had our lockdown. A lot of advice was given about how governments should handle this. And a lot of governments spent a lot of money. They gave away enormous amounts of money to companies, to various institutions in the hope that they would pump prime the economy and that this would soften the impact of the COVID. As a minister, I'm the foreign minister, of course, but I also had two other responsibilities at that time. We had a group of ministers who were charged with dealing with the COVID. I was one of them. There are also a group of ministers who deal with the economy. That's a standing group. I'm part of that group as well. Now, when we discussed how to handle with the COVID, the economics of it, Prime Minister Modi was very clear that he would spend the money, the taxpayers' money, very carefully, very prudently. He will give it to the people, directly make it available to the people rather than give money in a way in which, somewhere it kind of got lost on the way. So the result was, after 2.5 years, when everybody was taking stock, how is your economic recovery? How is your public finances? How much more debt have you incurred? What has been the impact on your people? Today, it's not an accident that we are the fastest growing large economy in the world. It's not an accident. It is an outcome. It is an outcome of leadership choices. And in fact, we often speak about Make in India. I want to tell you, at that time, I saw a thought process in the Prime Minister's head, which was made in India. He understood how India works, thinks, how India reacts, and that is how he fashioned his policy. So people today, the world today, actually not only admires the manner in which we dealt with the COVID, they actually respect the way in which we handle the socio-economic challenges of that time. And particularly, I would say, the manner in which issues of social stability, of food support, of financial support, of employment, how was the informal economy dealt with? These were all today factors in how the world looks at us. Now, every country finally develops a reputation on how it looks after its own people. I've spoken to you about how we dealt with at home. But we are one of the countries which has the largest number of people outside India. We had 1 million students, people just like you, who were at that time abroad. In many cases, their hostels, their countries told them, COVID, shut down the hostel, please take the flight and go back. And most of the time, there was no flight. Now, we had people who were seafarers, who were in merchant shipping, large number of people who were tourists, there were blue-collar workers, there were many IT people who had gone out on jobs. So, that whole, I would say, responsibility, how do you take care of a large number of people abroad? That is what we also demonstrated during COVID through the Vande Bharat mission. And in the Vande Bharat mission, we brought back 70 lakh people, 70 lakh, which actually, honestly, in the history of the world, nobody has ever done. But I'm now giving you COVID. We had a much more recent challenge, which was last year, the conflict in Ukraine. Again, we actually had young students involved. We had about 20,000 students. A few of them went back in response to our advisories. But the bulk of students, want to stay. They do not want to leave their studies. It's entirely understandable. Now, how to bring them back in the middle of a conflict? That too was something which was a very big responsibility. But there again, no country ran the number of flights. We did 90 flights to bring back our students. We went to every one of the neighboring countries. In every case, a minister was sent saying, you go there, you stay there, you will be there till the last person boarded the flight. And people saw two things there. The world saw, here is an Indian government willing to use everything, including the Air Force, to bring back its people, which takes its responsibility seriously enough to send 5 cabinet ministers, saying, you will personally sit there till our students come back. Now, one part of it is looking after your own. It's, in a way, very natural. I think what has also changed with us, which the world has taken note, is we have started to also respond to the needs of other people. We've been doing it, over the years, after 2014 especially. Some of you will remember the Nepal earthquake. There were some challenges in Sri Lanka and Maldives. But just see, just a few weeks ago, what happened in Turkey. When the earthquake hit Turkey and Syria, literally within a matter of not even an hour, well, I would say an hour, a little more than an hour, already the Prime Minister said, you know, you need to get a force out there. We need to, because we have disaster relief capabilities. We have mobile hospitals. How quickly can you get them out there? And again, literally within 2 days, we were there. From the time he gave the green signal, it took us less than 2 days. And, you know, you don't have to necessarily, you know, be shaped by what I am saying. Sometime look at the YouTubes on what the Turkish public says about the Indians who are there running a hospital. They're actually running a hospital in a school out there. Now, those are the kinds of things today that shape the image of India. If you ask me, pick a single thing in the last 5 years, I would say it is vaccine Maitri. It's vaccine Maitri because, you know, every September, there's this UN General Assembly. Last September, a bunch of countries actually came to us and said, you know, we'd like an event where we want to tell you what we think about you. Because we are all recipients of your vaccines and vaccine Maitri. And you should hear hear them. They really, I would say, you cannot be unmoved by what you hear. The foreign minister of Jamaica, who's a lady, she actually says, I have vaccine Maitri inside me. That is the kind of impact today that we are making in the world. But one part of it is, you know, how we govern at home, how we look after our people. Yes, there's the part how we contribute to the world. But every country, because it's a very competitive world, every country is also tested. You know, we all face security challenges. We come under public pressures. So I give you 2 more examples why the world today thinks of us differently. You saw that during the Ukraine conflict, we came under a lot of pressure from some Western countries that while they wanted to keep their freedom to buy energy from Russia on terms and pace which they wanted us really to sacrifice the interests of the Indian consumer. No, we stood firm. We stood firm publicly. And I would say this to you, you know, across Asia, across Africa, across Latin America, a lot of other foreign ministers, sometimes even prime ministers and presidents, basically told me or told Prime Minister, saying, look, we admire what you did. Many of us had that feeling. Not all of us had the ability or the courage to say it. That is also something today the world takes. I'll give you a different example. You know, some years ago, we revived a platform called the Quad. It's a group of India, USA, Japan, and Australia, because we felt we had a lot of common interests. Now, there was a lot of pressure, you can guess from where, not to do it. Now, 10 years ago, in 2007, actually we had tried Quad the first time. There was pressure, and the 4 countries gave up on the Quad. This time, we stood firm. So, when you stand firm on tough issues at a global level, the kind of, I would say, the kind of respect that you generate is actually very, very different. But sometimes it can be, you don't have to go out in diplomacy or in a, I would say, in a global arena. It can be right at our border. How a country behaves when its security is threatened, when its people are attacked, That too is a judge of our character. So, if you compare what we did after Mumbai 26/11 with what we did at Uri and Balakot, the world draws a message from it. When you see our soldiers after 2020 deployed in the northern borders, in the Himalayas against China, and you compare today how we are supporting them, sustaining them, making sure they have the capabilities. The world remembers how were these people in 1962, how are they today. This is also something. The willingness to stand up to coercion, stand up to pressure, stand up when your national security and your core interests are at stake. In recent years, we have also had, a number of issues on which India has been a source of ideas, sometimes a suggester of initiatives. So you can see that in terms of, the International Solar Alliance today, which has done more than anything else to propagate solar energy. You see this right now in something called the International Millets Year. That too is something which is very important for food security. When it comes to disasters, because in this, as climate change increases, there will be more and more disasters. India was the first country to propose a global coalition for disaster resilience. So we are no longer today the receiver of ideas, or the receiver of assistance, or the receiver of, what other people give to the rest of the world. We are also today a contributor. We are a giver. We are a provider. We are a responder. That is today the changing image of India. But in the final analysis, what the world thinks about India is determined by two factors. One, the buzz, the energy, what they sense is happening in India. And most of all today, this is visible in the digital domain. The scale of what we have done digitally. When I go around talking to people, saying, we deliver food to 80 crore people. We give money in the bank accounts of 40 crore people. Even the Ujjwala, the gas cylinder, is given to 8 crore people. The number of family members who have benefited from housing provided by government is 13 crores. So these are, for the world, fantastic figures. And the countries with less population marvel at the figures. But there are many countries who say, we have the same problem. I've actually had a president who made me sit for half an hour and made me talk about all of this, because he said, I have the same leakage issue in India, that in my country. So when I explained to him how leakage in India was cut, how those days when, 100 rupees left Delhi and 15 rupees reached the recipient, how that era is over, it's something which is of enormous interest. The other, of course, is people today see the personality of India. The fact that we today are culturally proud. We are not today trying to be an imitation of other cultures. That whether it is our food, whether it is our speech, whether it is our culture, whether it is our traditions, it is something that we project, for which we demand a rightful place. And that, I can tell you, the rise of a civilization again on the world stage, that is something which the world knows about India. So what are the challenges? I would say there are three big challenges. One, to progress further, to build on all this, it's important that we be Atmanirbhar. Atmanirbhar, not that we should be protectionist, not that we should say, oh, everything abroad is bad and everything must be made in India. Atmanirbhar means the key things, the core things, what we should be doing for our people, what we are capable of doing. You know, if you take the defense budget, 10 years ago, we were importing, all sorts of things. Today, you can actually see, as a result of Make in India, that, it could be clothing, it could be weapons, it could be artillery. Once you actually start tapping your own people, your own talent, we look at drones. Today the Indian armed forces are relying on the talent and skill of young Indians really to invent and deploy drones for national security. So how do you actually make a more Atmanirbhar India? Because if we depend on outside imports, it's not just bad for trade. It can be dangerous to national security. That countries can take advantage at moments of crisis. What we saw during COVID, when actually, there was a spike in the demand of PPEs and ventilators and masks. The second is, how do we leapfrog? And that is where I think particularly the contribution of Karnataka and Bengaluru is there. How do you deploy new technologies? How do you change the mindset of people? How do you create a different work culture, a different economic culture? And the third, of course, is the national security challenges. How do we continue to respond decisively to not just, what happens on our borders or terrorism? Because there will also be efforts to sow discord within our society. There will be attempts to undermine our morale. Today, in a globalized world, there are different ways by which ill-wishers can influence events. So it is something that we need to be very, very conscious of. So the point which my message to all of you today is, there is a world out there that is very different. It is a world which is looking at us with much greater, I would say, sense of partnership, much greater interest of cooperation. But we also need to look at the world differently. The world today is much more of a global workplace than it has been. Every country today, every developed country today is actually trying to interest us in how do we get our skills and talents. In recent months, we have done agreements with a number of European countries, Germany, Austria, France, Portugal. The second, the world will be a tech place, increasingly a tech place. There's nothing today in manufacturing which is happening without some kind of embedded technology in it. The world will be much more a services-driven economy. The world will be a stronger supply chain. Supply chains, we have a chance to participate in it. And the world will be a place where there will be an interest in collectively shaping our future. So I actually would impress on you the point which Tejasvi ji made. Foreign policy is not something abroad. If we did not handle the Ukraine issue right, each one of you would be paying so much rupees more for the petrol that you fill in every day. If we did not get our relationships right, we had to find even new sources of cooking oil, because Ukraine was one of the largest suppliers of sunflower oil to India. So we had to go around the rest of the world finding some other source, and we found a lot of it in Latin America. If we do not, for example, attract global manufacturing to India, that lovely instrument on which all of us spend so much screen time, that will be much more expensive, and it will not be something which would be made in India and which would in fact incorporate features which reflect its consumer base. So the idea today that there's a world there and there is we in India, that era is over. I think the young people of this world realize it. So I am standing before you here today to share with you that sense that the world today is much more India ready, and that is what we actually are trying to use the G20 to reinforce. Because the G20, G20 has 200 meetings. The G20 has the most powerful influencers in the world. I mean, if for every meeting, if you put a few hundred people coming, when those few hundred people in every meeting go back, they are influencing what the world is thinking about us. So we have to get more world ready. The world has to be made more India ready. It is happening as we speak. But it will happen there's no it's not pre-decided. It will not happen by itself. It will require vision. It will require leadership. It will require understanding of technology. It will require, how do we overcome old thinking and vested interests. It will require you to make your choice. It will require you to make your choice, because at every step, something more is getting decided about the country. A crucial state like Karnataka, if Karnataka does fabulously, the entire country is benefited. And that is the consideration with which today I ask you to look at the world. I want to say that when I go out and I talk to people, for me occasions like this are hugely helpful, because when I go around the world and say, look, I meet young people, I listen to their ideas, their questions, I see their optimism, their interest. It is something which makes an impression in the world, because we are seen today as a country of the future. We are seen as a country with a future. And that future is something which all of you have to decide. Once again, I thank you very much today for the opportunity to share this.
Thank you, sir. I'm confident that your insights and perspectives will be tremendously valuable as we move forward. Now, the stage is open for questions. We request the audience to put forward their questions and actively participate.
So I will take this. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you so much for that very insightful remarks. I already see hands going up. So when sir asked me, yeah, I see all of you. Yeah, hang on. But I want to exercise the privilege of sitting here by asking the very first question, then I'll come there. So, sir, the last 2-3 years, as the representative for this constituency, when people would reach out to us, asking for help in, say if they were stranded in some part of the country, some part of the world, whether it was for a medical emergency, whether it was for a quick process of a visa, and most importantly, during the Vande Bharat evacuation, or even during the Operation Ganga, there are more than 1,600 students just in Bangalore South who came back from Ukraine. Or even for that matter, I still remember there was a biking enthusiast who came up to us once and said, I want to do a biking expedition across 37 countries in Africa. I want some help navigating all these borders. I still remember, sir, whether it was during the Vande Bharat crisis or whether it was the Ukraine war, whether it was later, you or your office or even the consulates of Indian embassies and consuls abroad, they are a WhatsApp away. And this isn't an exaggeration. In many, even yesterday, a very prominent singer from Bangalore reached out to me at 1:30 in the night. I was on my way back from Gulbarga. I was in the train. He said, there's an emergency. I'm stuck in UK. He sends me a WhatsApp. We draft it again, put it on a letterhead, send it to the UK consul. And this morning there's a message. He says, sir, thank you for this. Same set of officers, same set of people, the same set of rules. But there's such stark difference that we are seeing, and foreign policy is not something that was so distant now. It's something that is touching everybody. What has changed? Because you were a bureaucrat and now you are leading the ministry yourself.
What has changed? I get a paragraph, I get a sentence, or I get a word? I give it to you in a word.
An essay.
No, I'll give you a word.
Okay.
Modi. You know why? I'll tell you a little story. When Operation Ganga was when Operation Ganga was going on, there was one particular city which was a huge problem. There were students stuck there. They were living in kind of air raid shelters. The Russians were just outside. There were Ukrainian forces there. This was in Ukraine, northern Ukraine. And there was a militia which was under nobody's control. And our students could actually, hear shells landing. And we'd keep telling them, saying, no, keep courage, we'll come, we'll get you, etc. One day, we actually got to a point where we got the buses there. The students came out, they sat in the buses, and the firing started. So they all rushed back. So we had a situation where, it was very difficult to actually, how do you motivate them? How do you give them the courage to come out? And we were we're talking to them really round the clock. It had been going on for a few days. So we came to the conclusion that the only way was that somebody would have to go. Somebody would have to go all the way to that place to tell them, saying, look, guys, you're okay, we are here, we'll take you out there. So I had a, shall I say, management challenge on my hand. How do you tell somebody, saying, why don't you go to a war? There's a little war going on there. Why don't you go there and risk your life and, do what is to be done? Now, the interesting thing was, while we were discussing it, two of my senior, and it had to be someone who spoke Russian, okay? So two of my senior officers told me, they said, we'll go. Now, one part of me said, okay, wonderful, they are solving my problem. One part of me said, okay, these are people, their families, God forbid something happens, what do I do? Now, they finally gave them the go-ahead to go. But I asked them, I said, okay, tell me, what motivated you? So they gave me that answer. They said, look, you have expectations of us. The country has expectations of us. But we also have a sense that the Prime Minister has set his heart on getting everybody out, and we collectively cannot fail him. So, when you have a strong leader, when you have someone who wears the commitment on their sleeve, where it's amazing how the rest of the society rises to that challenge. So when you ask me, same person. Now, sometimes it can be, okay, motivation, but also apply technology. Take passports. If you had been MP a few terms earlier, you'd be writing to me every day about getting some passport for somebody. Today, you don't even know what's happening, and you should not know. because passports today are being issued as they should be. Faceless, contactless, you give your application in and it comes out. Now, there again, how did it change? Here, actually, how to get a system to adopt technology, that itself is a huge challenge. So when I said Modi, it was not a smart answer, it was actually a real answer.
So, Bangalore has the youngest population in the country. It is the youngest city in the country with the largest number of millennials living here. Every time I encounter people, say at the airport in Delhi, airport in Bangalore, Chennai, wherever, one very big ask from people of Bangalore is that a city of the stature of Bangalore does not have the US consulate here. Many young techies must travel all the way to either Hyderabad or Chennai or Delhi, spend 2 days, 3 days for their visa appointments. They have to spend on the stay. While we contribute 40% of the country's IT revenue, why doesn't Bangalore have a US consulate that makes it so much easier? I had earlier met with you also, sir, and I only thought that it's appropriate to again request for this in front of such a young Bengaluru crowd.
Look, if I were, a resident of Bangalore, this makes perfect sense. If I was a decision maker in America, it also makes perfect sense. So, why it has not happened, honestly, it's not something I can do as an Indian foreign minister. It's something which obviously my American counterparts have to decide. But I do think it's a very, very compelling case. It's honestly a no-brainer. And since you have put it to me so strongly and repeatedly, and I can see what a response it evokes out there, I assure you the next time I meet Mr. Blinken, I will hammer home that message with at least as much force as you have done.
Thank you so much, sir. Thousands and lakhs of Bengalurians will be very grateful if you could strike this deal for Bengaluru. We all know that you are very good at striking deals, and we are very confident and optimistic that this is going to come through soon.
The next deal has been laid out.
Thank you so much. So I see a lot of hands going up. Let's, the gentleman in blue there, yes. Yeah. We'll come back. Let's try to get as many questions as possible. My only request is to please state your name and keep your question as brief as possible. Questions only, no suggestions, lectures, gyan, nothing. Questions only. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Naman Samtani, and my question is, how are we viewing the ongoing social and economic unrest in Pakistan, especially with groups like TTP wreaking havoc in the country recently, and the fact that it's a nuclear nation, and it can pose various threats if they fall in the wrong hands. So how do we look at the situation? Thank you.
Do I go question by question? Yeah, sure.
Look, do you want to take a few first?
Yeah, maybe I'll take about 3. It's easier.
Okay, sure. Yeah, here. The one in the cap. Yeah. You want a pen?
Thank you so much. So I'm Manan.
Can you please keep the mic closer when you're speaking?
Sure.
It's a little hard.
Can you hear me
to
now?
hear yeah.
Perfect. So I'm Manan, and actually my question to you was, you spoke very interestingly about Indians abroad. What's your view on people of Indian descent on foreign soil making statements that people with vested interests portray in a negative sense towards India? What is your view on that? Thank you.
Thank you. The girl there? Yeah.
So can I just
Yeah, sure.
ask
Go
one
ahead.
question? So my question to you would be, now you're considered as, I'm here. So now you're considered as a man who has, completely changed India's global standing and given India for the very first time a very strong and independent foreign policy. So how did this whole thing happen? Had you envisioned it before you entered the ministry, or had you had you planned it? Did you go situation by situation, or as you say in your book, The India Way, did you learn how to play masterminds and then play the hard ball?
Okay. First question on the TTP, what's happening in Pakistan. Look, what is happening today in Pakistan is something which was widely foreseen. The economics was foreseen, the terrorism problem was foreseen, all the other challenges, because these are things that they have done to themselves. The rest of the world kept warning them, and it's there out, in full public view. But if a country has a leadership, has institutions which are so short-sighted, who play with fire, who actually have created for themselves these Frankenstein monsters, then honestly they have nobody but themselves to thank for it. So, and then, what I find difficult is, oh, they have nuclear weapons, so as though we are supposed to do something about it. Well, they should have, they had nuclear weapons when they did all of this. So, to me, it's an object lesson of what happens when you follow the kind of policies which will lead you to exactly where they have come to today. On, people of Indian descent when they do or say negative things. Look, I want to say this. The bulk of the people, Indians, whatever passports they hold, I think are linked to India. They are deeply, still in a way attached to us. They take pride in our progress. They want to contribute to it. You have really, in a few places, honestly, a relatively small number of people. Now, you have a small number of people because sometimes they misuse it, to try and, for example, to say, I'm being politically persecuted and therefore allow me to stay. So it's actually a visa game, which they are playing in the name of politics or human rights or whatever it is. So sometimes they are misused by adversaries, and that is actually what is happening today. Our point is this, that when this kind of thing happens, look, we are a democracy. We are the largest democracy. In my view, we are one of the oldest democracies. We have democratic traditions, in this society which go way, way back before most others. Nobody argues with the fact that there should be freedom of speech, that there should be civil liberties. But these should not be misused to, espouse radicalism, violence, terrorism. So there is a difference between having rights and misusing rights. And when other governments don't appreciate this difference, I think they need to be reminded, sometimes effectively. On the transformation question, look, life sometimes is an accident, honestly. So when people ask you for sort of career advice, etc., a lot of it is, things happen, you yourself don't know quite how it happened. I mean, in my case, to be honest with you, I'd had, 40 years plus in the foreign service. After that, I joined the Tata Group. I was focused on something quite different. And honestly, I really think, other than Narendra Modi, I cannot think of anybody else who would have thought of making somebody like me, bringing me into politics. And but I would also say this, look, there are no politicians, I'm not like this guy. So there are no politicians in my family. I honestly never even thought about it. But I would say if it wasn't a Modi, I'm not sure I would have made that change. I wouldn't have made that. To me, it was, look, I see someone who is genuinely giving everything he has to change this country, to change this society. And how can you not support this endeavor? So, and once you are in it, you know, I'd say your kind of environment rubs off on you a little bit. So you learn to walk a little straighter and stand a little stronger. And so when I get pushed around, maybe I didn't like it before, but I was a bit more diplomatic about it. But I now feel, okay, guys, this is a different India I'm representing. I'm not going to take that. So I would say I'm also, in a way, reflecting your mood, you know, your sense of the country. And maybe that's what's created what you call the transformation.
Thank you. Let's go back. At the very fag end, I see the two hands there. Yeah, we'll go there. Yeah. We'll come here. Long press. Another mic here somewhere nearby. Who can? Yeah. Right side. Yeah. We'll go with this. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Where's the mic?
Can we get a mic here? Yeah.
Hello, Jaishankar ji, namaste. I'm Sai Datta Vamshi. I'm from a legal background. My question is simple. I want to know the readiness of India. Recently in the newspaper, I've studied that China, with Putin, they've bought drones and they have a contract. Like they're going on making agreements. What is the back-end work at your office where the insights of your office where you're thinking about this is what is about to happen, and how are you forecasting plans like in regards to this?
Could you be a little louder? Sorry.
Okay.
How readiness of India with respect to facing China?
With respect to the deal, like for example, drones. China has bought lots of drones from Russia. Like such deals happened, and how India is ready, like at the Office of External Affairs. Yeah, thank you.
Namaste, sir. I'm Jeevan. Okay, can I continue?
Sure, go ahead. Shoot.
Okay, I'm Jeevan. So I would like to congratulate you, sir, for being our external minister, because it's an excellent job that you have done, and I'm impressed. And sir, the success rate in UPSC or any services bureaucracy basically is very less. What do you tell to people who don't get through and who want to serve under Modi ji's regime? And one more thing is, what is the scariest situation in your experience, sir, wherein you were the most scared? That's it. Thank you.
Here?
Yeah, namaste, sir. Recently, we saw the turn of events happening in UK, United States, and Canada. The ambassador to UK, Vikram Doreswamy, raised red flags on the securities, but the police over there were very complicit. They did not listen to him, and we all saw what happened.
Yeah, what's your question?
My question is that how can we improve the security of the people who are staying in these consulates and all the diaspora, and will it affect our FTA agreement with the United Kingdom?
Okay. I didn't fully get that question. Could you give me a repeat of that question there from that gentleman?
Hello, sir. So basically, the success rate in UPSC or any bureaucracy is very less. What do you tell, or how can people who don't get through serve government of India under the regime of Modi ji?
Sure, thank you. Here, girl here, yeah.
Namaste, sir.
Brother, 1 second. I'm here trying to do something, na? Please. Here, yes.
No,
One second, the
I
mic is
can't hear
coming.
you. Wait. The mic is coming. Mic is coming.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Sanchana. My question is, does the Ministry of External Affairs allow spouses to be posted together during foreign posting if the partners are working in the MEA? If both are working together, does the Ministry of External Affairs allows it? Thank you.
The minister, if your partner is working in MEA?
Can the spouse also go there? The MEA itself. Yeah, here. You want to take this?
Let me.
Yeah, okay. The next
let
round.
me,
Next round.
Let me stop here, then I'll. So the first question from the gentleman back there, what is like the readiness of India to deal with threats and contingencies, etc. In the foreign ministry itself, there are I would say people who are tasked with looking at particular regions or particular subjects. And sometimes the region and the subject will converge. So you can have, say, somebody who looks at Gulf, but you can have somebody who is looking at passports, or who's looking at energy, or who's looking at technology. So depending on, the issue, a certain combination of people would come together. So think of it a little bit like a business, okay? You have different verticals. Depending on the business proposition, the right combination of verticals would come together. But in today's world, there are many things which are not limited to the foreign ministry. If you're looking at security matters, the military will be involved, intelligence will be involved, the defense bureaucracy would be involved, National Security Council Secretariat would be involved, or you're looking at something which is more economic, then you would have trade or finance. So you have at different levels, it goes, at the highest level, for example, the Prime Minister has a group of 4 ministers. These 4 ministers constitute what is the Cabinet Committee on Security. There would be a group of ministers who will deal with economic issues. There'll be, when we had COVID, we had a group of ministers who were charged with dealing with COVID. Then below them, the secretaries, and below them, the whole system. So they change, because again, the government's times change, governments change, the work culture changes. Under Prime Minister Modi, it has tended to be much more team-driven. That the culture really of people working much more tightly, much more closely, much more with a sense of mission, rather than a kind of a individual, I would say, self-promotion. And I think that's made a big difference on a lot of very complex issues. On the UPSC, look, the UPSC of course changed enormously from the day when I passed it. So I can't even say that I can today be confident about appearing in the exam again. But what I can say is this. I think for young people today, there are so many other options which it just didn't exist at that time. Our generation, even I would say somebody who's 25, 30 years younger than me, even they would have struggled with a much narrower set of what are their options in life. And today when I look at the kind of the startup culture, the work culture, the growth really in industry, and this city is a prime example of that. That I do not think, UPSC for someone who doesn't make it should therefore be the end of their world. I think it's just something, okay, you tried your level best. For some people it worked, for some people it didn't work. And then you look beyond. I mean, my children did not choose to take the UPSC exam, but honestly, if they had, this is the advice that I would have given to them as well. On the flag, the security of the High Commission. you know, in this particular case, in UK, whenever any country sends an embassy anywhere abroad, it is the obligation of the receiving country to provide the security for a diplomat to do their work. It is the obligation of the receiving country to ensure that the embassy or the High Commission or the consulate, their premises are respected. Okay? These obligations were not met. You know, that day when those, I would say what, vandals appeared before the High Commission, you know, what was our expectation was not there in terms of security for the High Commission. So we've had conversations with the British government after that. I think the next time it happened, you saw things were a little bit different. But it is our expectation. As I said, you know, many countries are very casual about it. They have a different view about their own security and a different view about other people's security. But I can tell you, you know, as foreign minister, we are not going to accept these kinds of differential standards. The question, if I understood, that if you have a partner in the ME,
Would you be posted in the same place?
if you have a spouse in the MEA working, then we do our best to try to ensure that as long as it's possible in your career, that we try to accommodate that.
Thank you. Whoa. Okay. Okay. The guy here. This is just random. So, yeah, sure. Hang on.
गुड इवनिंग सर, आई एम जितेंद्र सर. माय क्वेश्चन इज, हमारे वैल्यूज़ आज से कई सालों पुराने सालों से चलते आ रहे हैं, लेकिन यहाँ भारतवासियों के लोगों पे ही वेस्ट का इतना हावी होने का क्या कारण हो सकता है? और एक और मेरा सवाल है, today's youths are highly influenced by the Western culture, their ideology, their way of life. What do you think is the reason for this, and what according to you can be done to bring back to their roots? Thank you.
ये आपका जो पहला सवाल था, मुझे 2-3 शब्द सुनाई नहीं दिए, थोड़ा एको हो रहा था.
हाँ सर, हमारे इंडिक वैल्यूज जो भारत के संस्कृति और वैल्यूज है बहुत सालों से चलते आ रहे हैं और आज के तक भी वो चल रहे हैं, पर वेस्ट का हमारे लोगों पे इतना हावी होने का क्या कारण हो सकता है, हमारे कल्चर को डिस्ट्रॉय करने का?
So sir, the entirety of an external affairs minister's post involves traveling immensely and keeping your morale always high. Sir, how do you such a hectic schedule maintain to keep your fitness level high? How do you do that?
Your fitness levels. Yeah, sure. There.
Namaste, sir. This is Somsekhar. Even I was one of those students who are stranded in Ukraine past year. I would like to utilize this opportunity to thank you on behalf of all those students who are studying in Ukraine. I would like to thank you for the Operation Ganga, under which around 25,000 Indian nationals were brought back from Ukraine. So and now my question is that India being a successor state of a civilization, does the culture of Bharat and the civilizational aspect of Bharat constitute a more prominent element in the India's foreign policy in today's contemporary world? You
can take one more.
Okay, sure. Behind you. Yeah. Sure. Go ahead. Yeah. Mic is coming.
Good evening,
we
sir.
We have time for more questions, so chill. Yes.
Good evening, sir. Myself, Pratham Makhija, and I'm a student from International Relations. I have two small questions. That are we going to deal the same way with the events with the foreign countries, like attacking India using soft powers like BBC documentaries? And the second one is like, how are we going to deal with this separatist movement which are countering us from the out of our borders? Like right now there is Khalistani movement happening in Europe. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take this last one, sir. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Hello. Sir, my name is Karthik. I am an Ayurveda student. Sir, you said India were the first responders to the Turkey earthquake. But very few days after, they spoke in support of Kashmir in the UN. And even after the students who rescued from Ukraine, they were giving interviews after landing in Bangalore airport. We saw they were speaking, our country did nothing. Most countries were doing more than our country did. Don't you think there's a lack of gratitude in people India are helping?
You know, the first question, I mean, जो आपका जो सवाल जो था, look, today what is happening is because all of us are more globally exposed, we spend, you know, you don't have to leave India or leave Bengaluru to actually today connect with the world. वो सब फ़ोन में आ जाता है. So एक किस्म से ये एक contestation बन जाता है. You know, everybody tries to influence everybody. So when you say, previously we used to say nations compete. Today narratives compete. Cultures compete. And how does any country or any people or any culture exert influence is through that process. अब हम लोग जो हैं जितना हम अपनी संस्कृति परंपरा इतिहास को आगे बढ़ाएंगे, आप ये नहीं समझिए कि ऑटोमेटिकली दुनिया करेगी अरे वाह वाह वेरी गुड इंडिया इज राइजिंग अगेन, बिकॉज यू नो एवरी कंट्री दैट राइजेस is displacing somebody else's dominance. So वो थोड़ा like Newton's third law, there is also a third law of politics, that for every action there is a reaction also. So other countries will try to show us down, will try to influence us. You know, why? I give you a very blunt example. Okay. Many people in the world were very comfortable how things were in India till 2014. Okay? 2014, things changed. They saw different people, different beliefs, different confidence. Suddenly what happened? You know, people started saying, oh, democracy, there is something wrong. You know, today the court is not performing properly, election commission is not okay, press is being restricted. Everything happened after 2014 only. So why is that happening? Because you have people outside India who have an interest in people inside India. And when those people do not get electoral success, when you know they are seen today as less and less representing the reality of India, there is a attempt from outside to make out as though that is the normal, and somewhere India has started to deviate. Now if you look historically, this is the normal, what you are seeing today. This is actually in a 1,000-year history or 2,000, 5,000-year history. This is what we are. So my sense is the cultural competition is as much a part of political, you know, there's political competition, economic competition, technology competition, but there's ideology competition and cultural competition is very much part of it. Today, the reality is, as you can see, people from inside this country are taking politics outside. People from outside the country are interfering in politics inside. This is what we are seeing. So, the second issue, the fitness. Look, I normally do not give lifestyle advice, but if I were to give something, I would say please pay attention to fitness, because you realize its value. You know, when you are young, you take so many things for granted. How to stay, the moment you are fit, many other challenges become so much easier. And if you can, so one of the things for which I always try to associate myself, you know, Fit India, Khelo India, how do you, I tell people, look, if I can still play singles badminton for 45 minutes, why aren't you doing that also? So, and it makes a difference, you know. I try to put some, you know, give some thought every day to something physical before starting my day. And then the rest of my day, first of all, you are very nice to everybody after you've had physical exercise. You know, all your tension is hitting the ball, shuttlecock, whatever it is you have done. So, but honestly, it is very much a part of your mental sharpness also. So, it is tough. Travel and fitness doesn't combine easily. So, I am actually a late entrant to the yoga practice. But believe me, I've discovered in the last 10 years, it's made 15 years really, it's made a huge difference even for me. That. And then it's all the little things, you know. You know, Prime Minister has something called Lifestyle for Environment. He started this last October. And the Lifestyle for Environment is actually very simple. What idea is, every day, there are little things you will do in your life, which are good for environment. Make it a habit. I will tell you one small habit I have. I try and climb stairs as much as possible and avoid lifts as much as possible. It makes a big difference. So, fitness is, I cannot emphasize fitness enough. And believe me, I truly value it. And as anybody sitting, I think, higher up in the row of this hall will tell you why fitness becomes more and more important with each passing year. On the Ukraine issue, the culture, yes, I come back to the gentleman who asked this question, that, you know, to the extent India is more Bharat, you know, what is the change? The change in India, and I'm being very objective about it. If you look at the leadership of India, you look at the parliament of India, you look at the success stories of India, you look even at the cricket team of India. These are no longer only people from big cities and privileged backgrounds. That is actually proof of the success of our democracy. And today the more we have every part of India represented in as many activities and endeavors as possible, the more of Bharat will express itself. You know, Prime Minister Modi keeps saying, and you are seeing this even with G20, India is not Delhi. This is a mindset which we people living in Delhi have to get out of. And one of the reasons we are doing G20 is precisely to get out of that mindset. But when I say Delhi, I just don't mean physically Delhi. There is also a culture. In Delhi, we call it Lutyens culture. You know, the people who feel that, you know, governments come, governments go, but we are there, you know. We will decide what is right and wrong, what is, you know, what should be, what are the views expressed in the media, who should be raised, who should be criticized. So how do you break the hold of a narrow elite on the largest country in the world? This, actually, people don't realize how much of a transformation Narendra Modi has actually brought about in this area. And on the soft power, you know, the BBC kind of, you know, again, these are all linked issues. There are, I mean, at the end of the day, what was the issue about? It was actually in the name of media freedom, doing a political hatchet job, which ignored very major Supreme Court pronouncements on a particular subject. And then you say, no, but I'm only doing media. Now, the same thing you are seeing, you know, when this so-called Khalistani demonstrations come. You say, I'm doing freedom of expression. Now, freedom of expression doesn't extend to violence. It doesn't extend to somebody, you know, today desecrating my national flag. That is not freedom of expression. So I think we need today as a country to be firm about it, to call out these exercises when they happen. I think we should not be, you know, caught down because something is happening in London and something is happening in Canada and therefore we have to accept it. If we have strong views, in my view, I tell people, you can have views about me, but I will have views about your views. So I will challenge you. If I see you factually wrong, if I see you selectively using facts, if I see you distorting reality, don't think diplomacy means I will shut up and put up. I will not. So this is today, I think, a confidence. We have reached that stage today to display that. Finally, this gratitude issue. I must say something in defense of the students who came back from Ukraine. They went, I cannot even describe to you what they went through. That gentleman out there knows. They all had to do more than 1,000 kilometers to get out of the country. They had to stay in camps. It was very cold out there. There was a conflict going on. I think in many cases, they were just so tired, so relieved. Somebody says, newspaper, so what do you think? I mean, I think at that stage, many of them, their exhaustion showed. I don't think they were ungrateful. I think that would be, to me, I think most of them do appreciate, and I can tell you, one of the things which Prime Minister did, he asked the families, that gentleman would verify it for me. Do you know, government sent to every family of every student someone out there to say, look, don't worry, Prime Minister will bring back your son or daughter. Every family in the country was contacted. So people appreciated it, the families appreciated it. I think people who went through stress, we should also understand how they put up it. But I also want to say this. See, when you send somebody an earthquake, you send a team for earthquake, or our own children or citizens are stuck. You don't do it because you want gratitude. You do it because it's your responsibility. How they react, how another country reacts, the world will judge them. The world will judge, at the end of the day, if somebody is grateful, somebody is appreciative, world will have some view of them. Somebody is not so, the world will have a different view of them. But I should not say I'm doing it because, in return he will say nice things about me. That's not the reason I went there. I went there because people were dying and we had the capability of saving lives. And this is something today which is part of our tradition, that India has always helped the world when the world is in distress. Today, as a bigger country, as the largest country in the world, 5th largest economy in the world, with the kind of leadership and confidence that we have, today that is the thing which is the right thing to do.
Good evening, sir.
Every passing round, the number of hands are just going up. Let's, the guy in the maroon.
Good evening, sir. My name is Vishnu, and I'm a student of sir, here, right side. Right. Yeah. So greetings, sir. My name is Vishnu, and I'm a student of International Studies from Christ University. And my question is that, sir, this side. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So India aims to become a $5 trillion economy by the end of this decade, and Africa could play a pivotal role in this. But with the Chinese interests and investments looming around, what do you think would be the best strategy to approach African countries, given that, they are abundantly blessed with natural resources? Would it be through trade, aid, or foreign direct investment? That's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The guy in green there.
Hi, am I audible? Yeah. I'm Parimal and I'm studying international studies. So my question is, how is India bridging the gap between itself and China when it comes to space diplomacy?
Can you please
just repeat that once?
Yeah. How is India bridging the gap between itself and China when it comes to space diplomacy? Space diplomacy. Space.
So how are we bridging the gap?
Sure, yeah.
Which states to give us a lot of states like Karnataka state?
What do you mean by states diplomacy? Space diplomacy.
Space,
Okay. Sorry, the monitor here is quite. I mean.
Sir, namaste. So myself is Vishwas. So I am a participant from Youth Can Lead. So I wanted to ask you, seeing the growth of Indians' progress, so our passport ranking, according to you, when we can reach within top 10 ranking? And one more question is, what's your comment on World Happiness Index on India? Thank you.
So I knew somebody was going to ask me that question. Yeah. One more and last one.
So the last question.
Give it to a lady. Lady. I want gender balance.
Let's give this to a girl.
Somewhere.
Hello.
Sure, here.
Hello, sir. My name is Nischala. So India has faced a lot of hypocrisy from a lot of countries since independence. So how far do we forgive and forget in this ever-changing geopolitics? And how do we make these decisions? Thank you.
Next time, guys. There's always a next time. Thank you.
So, look, where Africa is concerned, today, African countries, they've had a really rough time the last 4 or 5 years. Most of them were last receivers of vaccines. In many cases, the rates of vaccination were less. They went through a lot of travel issues. Their economies were very badly hit. Then came Ukraine. They took a hit on oil prices, on food availability, on wheat shortages. So their situation today is really, really worrisome. Therefore, what Prime Minister felt was, when we are doing our G20 chairmanship, presidency, we should actually talk to all the countries of the South and get their concerns and speak for them. And we did that exercise. We actually spent time, Prime Minister himself and about 4 or 5 ministers, and we actually engaged 125 countries, of which 54 of them were African. Today, Africa wants to go more digital. Africa wants to go more green. Africa has, like the rest of the world, developed greater awareness about health. I think there are ways by which our capabilities and our experiences can help them. What we should do is to actually support the growth of entrepreneurship, create, the infrastructure, the businesses there. It should not be the fate of Africa to become like a resource source for the world. There are 1 billion people who live out there. They are demographically younger than any other continent. So their talent also must be given a chance to express itself. And I think India would do its duty by providing options and alternatives. If you put options and alternatives on the table, I'm confident many people will exercise or choose some of them. Regarding space diplomacy, this is a new domain or newer domain. There are a lot of ongoing discussions about it. At a multilateral level, just like in the 60s, 50s and 60s, they were on nuclear issues. Today, space is an area really where different countries have competing interests. But space diplomacy also can be bilateral. We have done launches for other countries. We have helped other countries make satellites or made them, customized it for them. We have done it for some of our neighbors. We did a launch for Bhutan. There are other countries who want today to utilize our capabilities out there. And we also, in fact, help countries or partner with countries in ensuring that their own satellite fabrication capabilities increase. So space is an area where there will be much more activity. To me, like chips, cyber, chips, space. These are today the new domains really of international cooperation and also of international competition. In terms of passport, you know, we are working at it. We of course are hoping to launch sometime in the coming months a pilot project for the e-passport. But how do you strengthen the acceptance of the passport, the reputation of the passport? You know, that will take time because the way the index is made, you know, the index itself is made in a way in which there is an inbuilt, I would say, bias in the index. I would not be too hung up on that hierarchy. I would be much more focused today that do we have, you know, easy visa arrangements? Do we, when we travel abroad, do you have the backup of your government? When you go for employment somewhere, do you have the same rights as the people who are working out there? If you are a student, do you have the ability to work alongside your studies? Because for a lot of students, that is very important. So if we do all that, you know, my sense is it would feed into the narrative of the contributing Indian in the global economy. I would rather go for a branding of the Indian rather than a hierarchy of the passport. To me, that is the right way to go. You know, on the happiness index thing, I think you should actually tell everybody to come to Bangalore. I mean, you can see which is the world's happiest place. Particularly on a Friday night. So you know, I don't know how these guys make up those indexes, okay? But I can only tell you one thing. A Singaporean friend of mine once told me, he said every time he travels out, he says, you know, I just have to go to some place and look at the faces of people, that is my happiness index. And his sense was people in Europe didn't look that happy. People to him in India looked very happy. Now, I'm not necessarily saying I'll make an index out of it, but look, these are all mind games which people play. You know. And finally, the forgive and forget. Do you forgive and forget? You should never forget. It's a big mistake. You know, if you forget, you are not learning the lessons from it. If you forgive, it depends what you are forgiving. Some things I would never forgive. You know, if somebody attacked my city, if somebody violated my sovereignty, I would never forgive it. And I would never forget it. So, forgive and forget is nice in personal relations. I think nations need to have longer and better memories.
Sir, thank you so much. This was a very exciting as well as a very intellectually stimulating discussion. Also, I must thank you for, please sit down, thank you. Later, brother, thank you. We will take it out later, thank you. I must truly congratulate all of you. The questions were truly engaging. It also reflects how deeply invested the young citizenry of Bengaluru is in not just domestic political affairs, but global happenings around the world. So huge round of congratulations to all of you for so effectively engaging and participating in this discussion. Thank you all once again, and over to you. We have, sorry? Yeah, sure. So we have one selfie with all of you, which we will take from here. So a few of you can just step forward here, and let's wind up today's evening with that. Thank you.
at Dinesh. Suraj, to keep the phone.
I think we'll go now.
Yeah, we can do like, sir, can we please have a picture with you?